Rachel was stronger now. She no longer jumped at shadows, and her nightmares had stopped. Well, maybe not stopped, lessened. The dreams that used to haunt her every night now only appeared once every 3 or 4 weeks. She took a deep breath and held it while she applied a gloss and rubbed her lips together. She let out her breath. Stuffing the tube back into her purse, she swore at the snap that wouldn't close. You can do this. You're not going to let that bastard control your life any longer. The snap finally caught. Now she just needed to get out of the car. Her hands shook as she unlocked the door. She swung her legs from beneath the steering wheel and placed both feet on the ground with a splash, her shoes immediately drenched by the puddle she hadn't seen. Kach, she swore again. It must be a sign that this session was not going to go well. Rachel stood tall, pressed down the lock, and slammed the car door shut. She stepped up to the building and followed the short path to Suite 109, her shoes squishing with each step. Taking a deep breath, she flipped her handbag over her right shoulder to bounce on her hip. She was ready to finally put the past behind her. As she reached for the handle, the door opened and a little girl rushed out, maybe 6 or 7 years old, with beautiful long blonde hair caught up in a blue denim bow. She ran to a light blue sedan next to Rachel's and giggled as she skipped through puddles circling the car. Rachel couldn't help but smile at the child's carefree innocence. After 3 circles, the girl stopped at the back end of the car, cocked her head, and waved 2 fingers at her. Hi. Hi. Rachel raised her hand and waved back. Did you forget somebody? Your mommy, maybe? Claire, I told you to stay close. At the sound of the tenor voice beside her, Rachel started. A man, 3 to 4 inches taller than her, had stepped out. In one hand, he held several colorful ribbons attached to a bright pink heart-shaped helium balloon that read Happy Birthday. He looked toward the car where the child was still giggling. The little girl raced back. Skidding to a stop in front of Rachel, they bumped, and Rachel teetered slightly toward the wall. Careful there. A weathered hand reached toward her and wrapped around her elbow. His touch was softer than she expected, but her knees still locked, ready to spring if she needed to move fast. He held her up with one hand. Deep brown eyes, emphasized by his full head of short, wavy blonde hair, looked at her, then turned toward the girl. Apologize, Claire. You almost knocked her over. I'm sorry. A small hand lifted to touch her other arm. That's okay, really. I should have been paying more attention. Rachel smiled and pointed to the balloon. Labre. Excuse me? Oh, She had lapsed into Gaelic, something she hadn't done in public since Cavan left her almost 3 years ago. I said, Happy birthday. The man looked at his daughter, and his smile reached his eyes, sending a tingle along Rachel's spine. What she would give for a man to smile like that when he thought of her. She bent to the little girl dancing in circles near the door. How old are you? 6. I get to go to 1st grade this year. The little girl looked up as Rachel straightened again. You're pretty like my mommy, but you talk funny. Rachel laughed. You could always count on children to be straight. Scottish or Irish? The man asked. Scottish. Dunoon. It's a little town on the Firth of Clyde. Rachel concentrated on not moving, avoiding the continued squish of her shoes. I thought I detected a slight accent, but it's not a full brogue. I've worked hard to lose it, to make myself understood. The little girl pulled on her father's hand. Can we go now? I'm ready for my cake. She jumped off the curb, making a big splash, and then stood next to the passenger door of the car, her eyes wide. The man laughed and waggled a finger in his daughter's direction. She's darling, Rachel said to the back of his head. She didn't want them to leave. She'd much rather go celebrate a birthday with this happy family than walk into that office one more time.